Hi guys, I'm Peter Freq, and this is my first ever attempt at a music production video. So let's see how this goes then. I get asked a lot by people generally about how I make my edits, how I make them so fast, because I do produce things quite quickly, and generally about my workflow and that kind of thing. So what I thought I'd do is give you just an overview of a track that I've done recently, and hopefully you will get more of an idea about how I go about stuff. So let's get cracked on and see what we think. So I'm just going to get rid of this little image at the bottom first so that you can see the whole window that I'm dealing with. So I'm just going to quick back. Let's just switch over. Okay, so this is a track I completed recently. It's based on Soup for One by Chic. If you don't know, that is the source for the sample of Mojo's Lady Hear Me Tonight. Obviously got made very famous back in 2000 and went everywhere and got played to death. But actually the original is quite... Well, I kind of like it more. There's some really good elements in there. There's a good kind of... It's got that early 80s kind of synth vibe going on in it, but it's Nile Rodgers, so it's funky as hell anyway. So what I've done, as you can see on here, I've got my tracks. Now, you've got MIDI. That light track there is the bass. Now, I use... generally, if I'm using a live bass sound, my two go-tos are... this is actually Bass Finger by Waves, as recommended by Andrew Emmel. Thank you very much, mate. And also I use the Contact Scarby basses from Native Instruments. Now, apparently, they have now disappeared. So, yeah, that's fun. Okay, so... the way I start a lot of my tracks, now when I'm dealing with something where I don't have access to the original stems or parts from the studio, what I will do is I'll get hold of a high quality WAV, AIF, or as I've been doing a lot recently, FLACs. Now they're good because they're cheap, which obviously makes things easier and less expensive to make. So what I've done is I run it through Isotope RX8, which I won't show you now, but I'll save that for another video. Though to be fair, it's quite a quick one. The wonders of music rebalance. And then what I do now, you'll see this has got various loops or sections where it's all cut up. Now, if I scroll over this way, you will see the original track and how I've actually stripped it. So my first job whenever I get a set of stems or a set of tracks together is that I tempo lock all of them. Now, what I'll do is I'll just click on this button up here in Logic, which is a very handy one, which then goes, shows all the flex. And what you'll see is there's lots and lots and lots of little lines. And if I now zoom in, there we go. You'll see, actually, I've only dropped a marker on every bar. And the reason I do that is because if you drop it on every single beat, or every part, like 16th of a beat, you end up killing some of the live soundingness, because naturally people, when they play instruments, they go a bit out of time. And by doing it this way, actually it means that you keep more of the feel of the original, I think. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the bass line briefly. Now, actually, what I've done here is I've replayed the bass because I couldn't find normally what I do is I look for a MIDI loop which is in the same key. In the case of this track, it's in the key of A minor. Now, I've actually sped it up. It's the original speed is 115 BPM, but I've sped up to 120 to make it slightly more playable. Well, it's not any less playable at 115, but you can give it a little bit more energy, and you can give it a gentle beef up. Okay, so I've replayed the bass line. Now the bass line here, if I just hover over with my pointer and not point it at the screen like an idiot, you'll notice that this is the bits that I've replayed. Now, if I scroll over this way, can you see here that it says FE bass 56 105A? So what I've done is I've gone looking for a bass loop, that MIDI loop that fits in with the track as close as it can. And in addition, what I'll do is I'll go on a handy website called Chordify, and what that site does is it tells me what the original key and the original BPM of the track was. Now that gives me a ballpark in which to play with that I can then track down how it all works. Now, if I go right the way back over here again. So now, this track is actually about 8 minutes long, which even for me now is probably a long edit. I try and generally aim for 6.5 to 7 at most, because I think once you get to 8 and above, you're getting into, well, Relight My Fire territory, where it's kind of like you'd end up having people would want to mix out because it's very difficult to sustain energy over an extended that length of time. Though it does have the benefit of being very useful for toilet trips while DJing, as I've found out. One of my old residencies where the toilet was 3 floors upstairs, and the only track I could play was the Buckethead's The Bomb, because that gave me time to get to the loo and back. Anyway, enough of my stories about DJing. Right, so I'm going to give this a little play so you can have a listen. I apologise, I've been waffling. I haven't actually played it yet. Here we go. So this is with the replayed plays. Okay, so I've tried to replay this as close as I can. Now, if I mute off some of these instruments, so the first thing to do is get rid of the bass, and I'm going to get rid of the kick. And you can hear the parts that are left of the original. So what I've done is I've replaced the bass line entirely, because when you use Isotope, it's very, very hit and miss whether it does it accurately. Now you'll also hear that there's a slight, almost like a filter wobble. But that's not actually a filter wobble, that's due to compression, because I've compressed the vocal and I've compressed the instruments to make them louder in the mix. And I try and replace things as best I can. Now what I'll do is if I just kick in the bass again now. And now if I drop in our kick. Okay, so making it the whole song. Now, as it happens, there's quite a lot of space. There's not that much vocal overall in the track, so you kind of just fill that one out. I could probably cut this down by a couple of minutes quite easily, but I do try and keep the feel of it as much as I can. Okay, so that's hopefully given you a bit of an overview of what I do. I'm open to ideas about anything particularly you want me to talk about, or if I want me to go through like a workflow for how I work with a track with MIDI files, or if like for example, if I'm using stems or multis, which is that again is a slightly different workflow. Generally takes me a little bit longer, depending on what the track is and how long it is, or how much of it I'm using. Anyway, I hope this has been a useful video, and yeah. Get that back to me in the comments and stuff, and hope you enjoyed looking at my oven behind me. Yes, I should really pick somewhere easier to work. But hey ho. Anyway, I've been Peter Freq. Thank you very much for your time. The Refreq is on. Thanks.